Once you connect with our client software to the Scada box or the Scada panel, there is an access. Whoops, where am I going here? So there is a user login process. Once you connect into the SDP panel, it's not going to allow anyone to just access Scada, of course. It's going to ask for a username and password. This is something that we can set up for you. Right now, the default is just service. So I'm going to use the service access to get into here to show you guys a demonstration. But this is something that if you choose to use Scada with your own system, with your own laptop or desktop that you set up for it, you can actually assign your own login and password just like you can for the HMI system. Okay. And there are different levels of access, kind of like the HMI. There's maybe an additional what we call basic. So there's a basic operator, service, and supervisor access levels for Scada system that allow you to do certain things. If you log in as an operator, you're actually able to remotely operate the system through the Scada program. But in order to do that, first you have to remember that switch on your UCP. It has 3 positions. It has local. The middle one is basically off. I forget what it's called. But there's also a Scada position on your key, on your UCP. So in order to use Scada to operate the system, you have to have that key in the Scada position. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to. Now, a lot of our customers don't like the idea of remote control of the unit, particularly with Scada, because if someone were to log into the system and be able to operate the unit remotely, that's often frowned upon. But it's there if you want to use it. Again, when you look at the Scada system in various screens, you'll see the same type of alarm indications as far as color severity. So you'll have, red for failures. You'll have warnings and attentions and messages as well. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here in the classroom portion because I'll be able to actually show you. But you'll have various screens that will be afforded to you in the Scada system. In fact, many more screens that are available to you than, say, the HMI. And you'll have a lot of more information that you can extract just by using Scada in different forms as well. You'll notice here, and this would be what we call our overview screen. So here you have sliders that would give you information for load. For example, you have little trend diagrams as well that can give you kind of the trend over time. Here's your operating buttons. So if you were using Scada to operate the system, you'll notice that you have operation buttons similar to what you find on the HMI that would actually control the operations of the unit, again, if you're in the Scada position on your key. Here you have, you only have one unit, but if you had more than one unit, you could actually cycle between units. In this example here, there's 5 units. You'll notice that indications here for alarms, red indications or yellow indications. And here you can actually see alarms as they pertain to different parts of the equipment. So this would be indicating your engine has a red alarm, or your generator, or your chem, or you've got some other type of yellow warning as well.
They would go ahead and be on that one alarm panel anyway, right?
They would.
That would just be different. You still see them in colors indicated
You would,
on that one screen.
yes, you would still see all this on your HMI as well. Basically, it would be a duplication. Yeah. All right, just goes into some explanation of the screens you'll see, and you've got a lot of bar graph information that you'll see in various screens. sometimes you'll see in this bar graph like an area of what you'd expect to see or normal operating conditions of that particular measurement, as well as red areas, red being bad. So you just at a casual look, you can see where the sliders are and know that, okay, everything is in range where it's supposed to be, or something's out of range. I guess Holland calls this a spark line chart, but it's just, again, used to note a trend. So it gives you kind of a trend first look here for various measuring parameters. Okay. Just like your HMI, it gives you indications of breaker status, open or closed. Here it can even give you a status of whether the breaker is disconnected or not. So you'll notice that a breaker being open looks slightly different than an open breaker that's also disconnected, right? Just a little slight difference. Here's a breaker that would be, let's say, in test position, but it's closed. Okay, it's not connected, but it's test position closed. So that has kind of a unique symbol to it as well. It talks about the operation section. Again, just like an HMI touchscreen buttons, you would be able to operate this with your Scada screen. Okay. There are alarm screens with Scada as well. There's an alarm screen that just gives you the same amount of alarm information that you'd see on the HMI. And we'll go through all these screens when we demonstrate downstairs, so I'm not going to spend too much time on these now. Unit overview screens, system screens. Here's a screen that just focuses on the no brake load itself. So it'll give, looks like sliders on no brake power information. Here's more detail of your alarm screen. So what this can show you, if I zoom in here, so this would be your Scada alarm screen, where the top would represent your active alarms, alarms that are active right now. And then there's also a bottom part which reflects alarm history. So the thing about the HMI is when you have an alarm on your HMI and you clear it, it goes away. Okay, so you're not able to tell any kind of a history record of your alarms.
So
just
kind of like a data logger.
Like a data logger, yes. You can actually look into Scada, and not only can you see the active alarms, but you can see alarms that occurred in the past. Yeah. And of course, they all have, time stamps, and so you're able to see, when that alarm occurred, and,
How much data will that thing hold? Will it, like from the beginning of when we started our unit?
Yeah, it holds as much data as what the memory is currently in the PC box that is in the panel. So I don't know how many much megabytes or gigabytes are in that PC, but that's the limit of what it would hold. I just don't know the exact number. Okay, the good thing about Scada is there are also screens where we can actually, again, look at the history of certain measurements like bearing temperatures, vibrations. This would be an example of a trending screen. I don't know if I can tell by zooming in or not. It gets kind of blurry, but this is probably maybe a vibration readings over time. So we can actually look at the bearings and see if the vibrations are increasing, or temperatures, if the temperatures are increasing over time, which would be an indication of bearing wear, or something going on with the system. The information that we get from Scada can be exported. So for example, let's say we're getting an alarm of some sort, you know, we come and we check it out, we look at Scada, we download our logs, and then we can actually send those to Holland so that they can review them and, you know, troubleshoot from a remote distance as far as what might be going on with the unit.
Can you guys do remote monitoring for this?
We can. If you allow us to remote connect into your system, then we can remote monitor from anywhere in the world. All we need is an internet connection. We've never had a customer that have allowed us to connect into their system. It's usually something that's frowned upon because they're obviously afraid of, you know, unauthorized access, right? But yes, it is possible.
We had in California, we had the same type of deal where they were able to control these circuit breakers with a sort of refinery from Florida. So
Yeah.
they were able to close.
Yeah.
You know, that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
From the DICOM before it goes to the SCADA?
SCADA communicates directly through our PLC network. So basically everything comes from the PLC, but a lot of that information does originate from the DICOM as well. The DICOM, our PLC, all of our communication cards that are in the switchgear that operate the breakers, our PLC interfaces in the PCB box, and the ADP and the SDP, they all communicate on an IP network. So they're all interconnected and they all can share information back and forth. But yes, ultimately the SDP is getting information from a lot of different sources, and through the PLC, all of that is stored in the SDP box or the SCADA box.
So reading that up there, an event would be defined as an alarm or a status change?
Yeah, there's the SDP basically will record any alarm event, even your lower level alarms that, you know, don't have a lot of effect on the rest of the system. The DICOM has its own events that it will record separately from the SDP, but those are the let's say more important events, the actual red alarms or the utility failures that the DICOM will also take a snapshot reading for. And those are not available for your extraction. We have to send service people to extract those logs. But you would be able to extract, if you had SCADA running, you'd be able to see history of, you know, those as well as any superficial lower level alarm as well.
So, is that DICOM is digital information collection or something, or the DICOM?
Well, yeah, the DICOM collects digital and analog information. Actually, it's all digital, right? But it's even the analog is just a configuration of zeros and ones. But all of this information is collected. The DICOM keeps some of it. SCADA keeps some of it, and you know, I like to use the DICOM logs because I don't have to connect to SCADA in order to see those. I can connect directly to the DICOM. So for me, it's easier to use the DICOM logs, but for a customer, SCADA is the only way that you can actually access those history logs.